Welcome back to the channel, guys. Today's video is about the correlation between the US dollar and the Bitcoin price chart. And what we're going to touch on today is how that every time we've seen the US dollar go down since 2017, we have seen a Bitcoin bull run. And the real Easter egg of today's video is what happens when the US dollar is in those final bottoming stages and has completed a 5-wave corrective move to the downside, and how that pertains to not only Bitcoin, but the rest of the cryptocurrency market, including the Bitcoin dominance and altcoins like XRP. So today's video is another little history lesson, but as you'll see come the end of this video, what we start to see when these dollar bottoms is something that we are all looking forward to. So let's jump into it. So where I want to start this video is that each time we've actually seen a bull run for Bitcoin, here in 2017, here in 2020 and 2021, and so far the run that we're having in today's cycle, each time we've actually seen the US dollar actually break down to the downside. And in each of these instances, when we've seen the dollar break down, like in 2017 into early 18 here, we've seen a clear 5-wave move to the downside. And what's quite distinct about each of these is you can see the first 2 waves occur at the top of the breakdown here, with a long 3rd wave with a corrective pause out in the middle. And then what we've typically seen is the 4th wave and then a final 5th and a little bit of a correction at the bottom. Fast forward to 2021 and late 2020 here, when we've seen a bull run for Bitcoin and the cryptocurrency market. We've seen the 5-wave corrective structure play out quite similar here on, again, the US dollar. And we did see the first wave, the second wave at the top and form the shoulder, same way we've seen things play out here. Then we've seen a long 3rd wave with a corrective pause out in the middle, the same way we've seen things play out here. And then we've seen the 4th and final 5th wave here with a bit of a stall out and a bottom forming here. The same way we actually seen things play out here, where we've seen that 4th and 5th wave with a bit of a stall out at the bottom here. Now, if we have a look at how the US dollar is actually playing out so far in this breakdown, we've seen things play out quite similar, where we've seen those first 2 corrective waves happen at the top, the long 3rd wave with the stall out period in the middle here, the 4th wave and the final 5th wave, which I do believe we are seeing the bottoming process of this happening now, as we've started to see the US dollar actually push back into that resistance area. Now, what's most interesting about the way all of this played out isn't the fact that we've seen a bull run for Bitcoin in 2017 or the 2020-21 cycle, or the run that we've had so far this cycle. It's what actually happens in these bottoming stages here for the US dollar. And the first thing I want to actually have a look at is this zone that we've marked out here. And you can see when the dollar bottoms, it is roughly early January of 2021, and it stays in this bottoming structure until about May of 2021. Now, if we have a look at the Bitcoin dominance here, you'll know that we've been drawing reference to the breakdown that happened in 2021. But what's most interesting about this is that if we actually have a look at this breakdown, we can clearly see this was the alt season of 2021 and the breakdown for the Bitcoin dominance. And what we're looking for here is that early January of 21 to June of 21 area. And you can see that the breakdown for the dominance here happened in January of 21. And by the time it was finished, this was that May into June period of 2021. Right as we've seen the US dollar actually bottom after forming a 5-wave corrective structure. Now, if we go back to the previous time this actually happened, when we've seen the 5-wave corrective structure, and this bottoming stage here for the dollar actually happened in January of 2018, what we can see is if we go back to the Bitcoin dominance, look back to January of 2018, what we can see is that was actually the end of the 2017 alt season, which I believe this final stage for that alt season actually started here in December of 2017, wrapping up in January of 17, which if we have a look at the US dollar, you can see this is that January and December period of 2017 into 2018. Now, if we fast forward on the US dollar to the way things are playing out today, and if we are at the end of this 5-wave corrective structure and actually starting to form a bit of a bottom here, what we should see here is that things have played out like they have in the past. A 5-wave corrective move on the dollar, breaking to the downside. Meanwhile, at the same time, we should see Bitcoin on a bull run. If we have a look at Bitcoin, it's pretty clear it has been on a bull run and potentially in those final stages of the run, similar to the fact that we believe we are in those final stages of the dollar here and it's actually putting in its bottom. So we've seen similar price action play out for the dollar and for Bitcoin, resulting in a bull run for Bitcoin while all of this has happened. And what we're looking for next to happen is the altcoin season that happens once this 5-wave corrective move has happened and the US dollar starts to form that bottom, the same way it did back in 2021 and the same way that it did during this time period of 2017 leading into 2018. Now, if you've caught previous videos on the channel, you'll see that I do believe that this was essentially phase one of the alt season and the initial break, similar to the way things played out in 2021, and that what we're going through now is a paused out period before the Bitcoin dominance actually breaks down again, and that in this final breakdown is when we should start to see the largest outperformance on the altcoins, and essentially what most people call an alt season, but is really just phase two of the alt season. And at the same time, what we should start to see is the US dollar start to form a bottoming structure here, and it wouldn't surprise me if, just like back here in 2021, we do start to see the dollar shoot up and then pull back and stall out in this zone here, and that during all of this, what we should start to see is the alt season for crypto, same way things played out in 2021. And if we have a look at the way things are playing out here for XRP, you can clearly see we are in those final stages here, as we already have had the mid-cycle correction, broken out, set new all-time highs, and now we're in that final late stage period before we should start to see XRP actually explode as the Bitcoin dominance breaks down, just like all of the altcoins did when the US dollar was actually forming a bottom back here in 2021 and back here in 2017 leading into 2018. So guys, the point of today's video is to show you that we have gone through very similar phases in the past every time we've seen a Bitcoin bull run, and at the very final stages in alt season. Now personally, I believe we've already seen the start of the alt season, and we're in that paused out period before we start to see the second phase. However, most people don't believe that we have even started an alt season, even though coins like XRP have actually set a new all-time high since the dominance started breaking down. The majority of the cryptocurrency market is still just fighting those retracement levels, as we can see here on the total market cap of crypto excluding Bitcoin. However, I do think once we see totals start to break above that 1.65 trillion mark, a lot more people will be convinced that we are actually in an alt season. However, like shown earlier in this video, I do believe we have seen more than enough signals to indicate that we are in an alt season, even if we have a look at the US dollar and where things are sitting at right now. However, we just haven't seen the rest of the market break out, and that all we've seen so far is just some of the stronger coins like XRP, for example, actually break out and set new all-time highs. And just one more little Easter egg I want to share with you guys here is if we actually have a look back to the 2021 cycle, what you can see is that once that fifth wave came in for the US dollar, you've seen a bit of a bounce here, and then what actually happened in this final stage when the US dollar broke down, you can see that this peaked here on the 31st of March, and then the US dollar broke down in this final stage here, which you can see better highlighted now in this purple box, that if we actually have a look at the Bitcoin dominance from the 31st of March to when it bottomed here in late May, you can see that this is actually it right here. This is the 31st of March in 2021 when the Bitcoin dominance actually started breaking down and going into that phase two, which then led into early May, and that was it. That was the alt season, which was right here in this final stage on the US dollar after we've seen it shoot up on the final fifth wave, which if we have a look at the way things are playing out today, we are shooting up. I do think we have put in that final fifth wave, and now we are seeing the US dollar shoot up. So if we start to see the US dollar get back to these levels here and start to break down, all at the same time the Bitcoin dominance also breaking down from these levels, then I think that is when we will officially see the final phase of the alt season, which if we have a look here only lasts for 47 days, the same way the US dollar here broke down, which took about 50 days to happen. However, structurally, we are setting up just like this again. And if we grab the US dollar currency index here and actually overlay this on the way price is playing out today, what you guys will see if I delete my drawing here is that we are playing out remarkably similar here. Even stalling out in the same periods, rejecting, finding support at the same levels, and now we've seen the dollar shoot up just like it did in 2021. And I hate to be the guy that puts a date and tries to tell you exactly when I think things are going to play out and time things, but don't be surprised if we start to see that dollar creep up here coming into mid-August, looking like around the 20th here, and then we start to see that breakdown. Meanwhile, at the same time, we see the second phase of alt season and we see things start to break down here on the Bitcoin dominance. So in the coming weeks ahead, this is another thing that we'll also be monitoring and tracking here on the channel. And if you guys want to stay up to date with how this is playing out, feel free to subscribe down below. Leave a like on the video if you enjoyed this content. If you have any questions about this, feel free to drop them down below in the comments section, and I'll see you guys in the next video.